Hi everyone, I'm Megan Sullivan, producer and host of History and Games, Rapid RPG Review, and Weekly RPG Roundup. Today I'm going to discuss what we know about Final Fantasy XVI and what I think we can expect, which includes some fun, spicy takes. So first let's look at what we know for sure. The Square Enix page for the game says Final Fantasy XVI is an all-new standalone single-player action RPG produced by Naoki Yoshida of Final Fantasy XIV and Dragon Quest fame, and directed by Hiroshi Takai, who worked on Final Fantasy XIV and The Last Remnant. The game will be available on the PlayStation 5 and PC. Now from what I can gather, the game, which looks like a mix of Final Fantasy XV, Final Fantasy XIV, and Demon Souls, is set in a world ravaged by a blight that can only be stopped with the blessing of something called a Mother Crystal. Meanwhile, a war has broken out between an empire and other nation-states for reasons unknown, although most likely it's tied to Mother Crystals and the blight. Is the Empire mentioned in the trailer invading other lands to stop the blight from affecting them by going after crystals? Or are they the cause of the blight because they want to destroy the crystals and people's dependency on them? We don't know for sure, but it's interesting that the game's motto is, quote, "The legacy of the crystals has shaped our history for long enough." The story is told from the point of view of a bodyguard charged with protecting the son of an archduke named Joshua, which is important because the kingdom of the archduke is soon invaded, most likely because the invaders want the archduke's mother crystal. The invading army may or may not include an elite corps of soldiers marked with facial tattoos, who during an earlier scene in the trailer was tasked with targeting Shiva's dominant. Now at first I thought Shiva's dominant was a cool sounding location, but it turns out the name dominant might actually refer to a specific person, in Shiva's case a woman, who has the ability to call upon icons, magical beings known by a variety of names in the Final Fantasy universe, including monsters, summons, espers, eidolons, and guardian forces. Seriously, I love you Square Enix, but pick a name, any name for these creatures and stick with it. However, the mission goes awry when the icon Shiva is challenged by another icon, the iconic Final Fantasy summoned Titan. This event is possibly referenced later in the trailer by an evil-looking woman who mumbles something about the Battle of the Twin Realms. At any rate, it appears the job of the mysterious tattooed soldiers is to either take control of other people's icons or destroy them and their host, the Dominant. Later in the trailer, we see the nameless protagonist, the sworn shield of the Archduke's son, battling familiar Final Fantasy enemies like Marlborough and Quirrell while calling upon the powers of the Phoenix icon, which gives him special abilities in battle. We then later see him call upon other icons in battle, possibly that of Garuda and Titan, suggesting the main character can switch icons in battle the way the main character in Persona can switch personas. What's strange though is the trailer only shows one controllable character during combat. Could it be that your loyal companions of Final Fantasy's past are a thing of the past? Me, I doubt it, since in one scene you do see what looks to be another character wandering around during a goblin fight, but it's more or less confirmed that the battle director of Final Fantasy XVI is Suzuki Ryota, who worked on Devil May Cry and Dragon's Dogma, which would explain a lot about the fast-paced single-character combat. Now here is where I start speculating about the story. In the trailer we see a cutscene where after the Archduke's land has been invaded and the populace brutally murdered, the Archduke's son is so traumatized he awakens to his magical powers, the trailer is called Awakening, get it? And summons the Phoenix icon, adding more credence to the idea that the name Dominant is tied to people who can control these magical beings. What happens next is a bit confusing. All we see in the trailer is somebody, possibly an adult male, summoning the icon Ifrit. Ifrit then battles Phoenix. We don't know the outcome of this fight, but my guess is something tragic follows, because we know Joshua's bodyguard has the ability to use Phoenix in battle, which means he might have inherited it from his fallen ward. This would also explain the main character's quest for vengeance, and we know he's mad about something because he swears he will kill somebody, and that person is most likely whoever called on Ifrit. And you can tell there's going to be a showdown between the Dominant for Phoenix and the Dominant for Ifrit because the logo shows the two icons locked in mortal combat. But who is the antagonist? This is where things get interesting. If you look carefully, you'll notice one of the tattooed soldiers looks a lot like the protagonist. Could it be that we see a younger and older version of the same character, and the tragic events involving Joshua are what led him to become a tattooed mercenary seeking vengeance? Or could it be we have a case of twins on the opposite sides of a war, a la Bosch and Gabranth from Final Fantasy XII? And could it be that we get to play as this evil twin at some point? Notice the character summoning the power of Titan in combat has long hair like the tattooed super soldier. This theory may seem far-fetched, but it does hold some water since it's unlikely that the story would be told from only one point of view, especially if you're only allowed to control one main character at a time. Or maybe we've got some weird looper thing going on where the older version of the protagonist has amnesia and is brainwashed and controlled by the tattoo on his face and is sent to the past to kill the very boy he was sworn to protect, which kind of makes sense because the antagonist does seem unsure about his tattoo and his mission to target Shiva's dominant, who might be the little girl we see next to Joshua in one scene since she's wearing a snowflake pendant. I mean, how does he forget her? It's all too much. Well, whatever, at this point it's all speculation. I mean, it's Final Fantasy, and who knows where the story will take us. Hopefully we'll find out more at TGS, but we'll definitely learn more in 2021. In the meantime, we know for certain that there will be chocobos and dragoons in this game. Fingers crossed for an airship. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and follow this channel, and if you can spare a dime, please support my Patreon at patreon.com, Megan, M-E-G-H-A-N, R. Sullivan. Thanks so much for watching, guys. See you later.